Joining us now is Dr. Karen Wang of Sunnybrook Hospital in Toronto. Dr. Wang, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
I want to begin by asking you, how do you think this time in history has affected the mental health of our children? I know it's a big question.
It is indeed. Well, we know that the COVID pandemic has created a significant upheaval and disruption to the normal development of children. There's been a lot of disruption in terms of their schooling. There's been loss of familiar rituals and routines. And there's really high rates of self-reported loneliness, anxiety, depression, and really all across the board. As you know, we're looking at the mental health care system in Canada. We've seen that there are also certain populations or subpopulations that are really needing help more than others. And as a psychiatrist working in a hospital acute care setting, I work on an inpatient unit, we've certainly seen a lot more cases of kids who are coming to hospital with self-harm, with suicidality, with eating disorders, obsessive compulsive behaviors, and also a lot of conflict within the home, which then typically leads to behavioral issues.
Oh yeah, it seems to be so widespread, and my heart goes out to those children. As a past sufferer of eating disorders, I know how damaging it is and how it can affect our mental health, our well-being as a whole. How do we help our children then cope amid this COVID situation? You want to fix things. How do we do it?
So parents and caregivers can actually do a lot. I think, first of all, we can acknowledge children's fears and worries, provide emotional reassurance for them, also connect them with a really strong social support network. Many kids have had disruptions in terms of their friendships. They haven't been able to connect, as usual. And so if there's a way for the parent or caregiver to help really rebuild those social networks, that would be really important. And I think also teaching kids how to sort of think creatively and constructively about problems. We need to teach kids life skills and problem-solving skills.
Oh, that is a really good one. It's so true. That is something I definitely have seen over the years, is that a lot of times they don't have the life skills that we should be trying to instill in them. And I think we really do need to be reminded of that, how important it is. How do you think adults inadvertently or even unconsciously contribute to children's anxieties? And I was thinking about this myself when I was about this question, because I know at times with my own girls, when they were younger, if I was anxious about something, I could see them start to be anxious and respond with their different personalities, and how I would have to correct myself to try to bring calm and make sure that they were okay. So how do we do this, and how do we unconsciously contribute?
So sometimes parents can do one of two things, which might actually exacerbate or worsen a child's anxiety. First of all, you have to know your child. If you're disclosing a lot of inappropriate information, i.e. that it's not appropriate for their age, they don't have the cognitive capacity at that point in time to really process and digest that information, it's too overwhelming. And so we have to be really mindful, what kind of pieces of information are we giving to our children? But also on the flip side, if we're not talking to our children, we're not disclosing to them information that they actually need in order to stay safe and function in society, that's not helpful either. So it's finding that right balance where, knowing where your child is, where they are cognitively, emotionally, and mentally, how can we share with them the right pieces of information? I think that would be really important to know and to really address that early on.
I think you're so right. The balance is a difficult one, but so important. We can't completely shelter our children, but we don't want to overwhelm them. And I guess understanding their age and what they can handle at that age is so important. What is the residue from the last time we went into lockdown?
Yeah, this pandemic has just been going on and on. And I think, the residue that we're all experiencing is sort of this chronic stress, right? We're all fatigued and frustrated with how there have been limitations to our normal life. Even though many activities have resumed, there are still certain restrictions, there's inconveniences that have happened as a result of COVID. And I think this sort of ongoing chronic stress does sort of play out in our families as well, where we might be more irritable, things kind of set us on edge. We might have less tolerance for our children. children and for sometimes how they may be behaving. So I think being mindful of that and also attending to our own mental well-being as parents is really critical.
Right. I want to bring Mike in now, but that was a great point. Absolutely.
Well, Dr. Wang, in typical guy fashion, I'm always looking for one or two things that we can do to remedy the problem. And while I know that there's not a quick formula to do that, what would you suggest to parents as we head into the Christmas season to create a positive mental health environment for their families? Or one or two things that you could give me to give our listeners right now?
Mm-hmm. So I think one of the very practical and concrete things we can do is really just to spend good quality time with our children and to listen to their concerns. We often underestimate how important our physical presence is for our children. It's not the gifts that we're giving to them, it's those special moments that we're creating. And even very small things like making a meal together, spending time reading a book together. These can have significant, important memories for children. And when they think back, in the past, as they get older, there may be actually fond memories that they have of the pandemic. I certainly have asked my children as well what they've both learned from going through this experience of COVID-19 as well as things that they treasure. And actually the thing that they treasure the most is that additional time that they have with us. I think the second thing from a concrete perspective is to really think through what sort of life skills and problem solving skills they need. What can we do to equip this generation of children? Because they're going to be facing increasingly complex problems in this world, not just COVID-19. We hear a lot about climate change and the sort of new problems that will pose for our society. So teaching children at an early age how to think practically and to utilize problem-solving abilities to manage complex problems. I think those are two really critical things that we can actually give our children this upcoming season.
Very good points. Thank you so much for your information. Very, very helpful.